Insanity, what is it? Is it always a bad thing? And how do we understand it? So one of our clues comes from the saying that there's a fine line between genius and insanity. And to understand what that fine line is, first of all, it's important to understand that all of us are engaging with reality through a lens called language. And through that lens of language, we're creating a model of reality through words to help a smaller brain. It'd be as if you asked a very small computer chip to process the planet's movement around the sun. And the chip cannot handle reality. Reality is far too complex to do that. But we could create a model of the reality that, for example, has a little light sensor and says that, it's dawn when the light is this amount, it's full, it's the midday at this amount, it's then it's evening at this amount. And every time it goes to one amount, that's one piece of data, right? That's one day. And so we don't need to know exactly how many miles per hour the Earth is going. We don't need to know all kinds of things because we've created a heuristic model of reality in the language that a chip can digest, which is to just say, light is at such and such, it's one day. And in that way, the chip can do some useful calculations because we've dumbed reality down to the processing power of the chip. And that's exactly what we're doing with language. Because we dumb the billions of atoms and subatomic particles and energy waves and multiple dimensions that are in play, we dumb it all down and we say this is a finger. It's a what? It's a finger. Why a finger? Why not a pinger? Well, we just all agreed to call it a finger. We're a cult. So in our cult, we call this a finger. And what is it? It's that pointy thing. But what about this and what about that? No, and we just say that's a separate finger. It's separate from this. But it's interconnected. And this is interconnected, and this is interconnected, and the entire multiverse is interconnected, but we're not going to track that because it's too complicated for this little processor. So this is a finger because I said so, and we all agree this is a finger, and that's the way it will be. Now, that is an illusion. That is a lie. That is a model. It's not a finger. A finger is what we call that part of the complex interconnected ecology. And because we all agree to call it, because that's what cults can do, is they can say this is the way it is because this is the way it is and that's the way it is, then, okay, there we are. We're part of our cult. Now, if we start calling a finger a pinger, we start to get a little bit crazy from the perspective of the cult. If we call a hand a sand and a finger a pinger, and we keep that up. In other words, if we mutate, if we dissociate the model of reality that the cult is using and create another model of reality, we become insane to the cult, but the cult becomes insane to us. Now, why? What's happening there? Well, the symbols are not matching up. The symbols are distorting. And at a certain point in that distortion, what happens? The little processing chip called the conscious mind looks out, scans the symbols, and says, I cannot make heads or tails figure out what is going on with those symbols. I have no idea what they mean. They are just random noise, and I have no idea. Is that a signature? Is that it? It's meaningless. Meaning I cannot assign a meaning to it. Why? Because I can't interpret the symbols. So what do we call someone when we cannot make anything, any sense of them? Usually we call them insane. Now, this is particularly easy if nobody else can make any sense of them. Okay, so the person who is insane is the person who has distorted or uses a different set of symbols to navigate reality, to heuristically model reality, than our symbols. They're crazy. They're savages. They're not like us, says every cult member, and they aren't. So that's insanity in the cult relationship. However, if we notice that, an entire country talks like this, does like this, then we start to say, no, the person isn't insane. They're using a different language. They have a different model. So they're sane in their model, but they're not sane in our model. But there is sanity there. Now, this gets into the next level of sanity. So the first level of sanity is dissociating from the group that you're in. You become crazy. Now, this is where the fine line becomes, emerges between genius and insanity, because there is a bell curve of innovation. In all new technological adoption, the first inventor of the cell phone is 1, 2, 3 people, right? It's a very, 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 very tiny bit of humanity. And they figure it out, right? It works, it benefits their lives, so they share it with people, and more people adopt the cell phone. And then, back down here, there's a new technological revolution. Over here, someone is inventing the next thing. And again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 people, etc. But at the beginning of any adoption, you have a tiny portion of humanity is knowing what's the new best thing. And those are the geniuses. But they're also, at that moment in time, insane. If you go back 1,000 years ago and you start talking to your family, your cult, your relatives, etc., you talk with the people that have adopted donkeys and carts. So the majority are using donkeys and carts to travel from town to town and pass on the message. Maybe they've invented paper by then. And you tell them about this cell phone, and what do? They call you stark raving mad, lunatic, laughter, etc., because you're ahead of the majority. And the majority doesn't believe you. Radio waves, what's a radio? It's nonsense. And so going from nonsense to genius to normalcy and then a new nonsense is a cycle. And at first, a very small percentage of people do it. And not every person who sees and perceives a possibility realizes it. There are many, many geniuses that do see either a possibility, a probability, or the actuality. The cult could have turned this way and developed any number of technologies that it decided it wasn't interested in. It's doable. The genius was correct. It could be done. The design was in the neighborhood of actionable, but nobody did it. And so they remain, from the perspective of the cult, a kook. And the cult may remain, from the perspective of the genius, insane. because the genius says, no, this should be done for this and this and this and this reason. But you guys don't get it. And so you have a dissociation. Now that's kind of in the terrain of genius and insanity. Now, another level of insanity is dissociation from oneself. So what is the self? What is the I, the identity? Well, the identity and the self are the model that we have created that we believe in. You may say hand and I may say sand, but I say sand every time I mean what you mean when you say hand. And so I know what I mean when I say this. You don't know because I say sand and you say hand, but I know. And so I say sand when I mean what you mean by hand, and I say finger when you say finger. And so I have my system, you have your system, but I know my system and I can track it. I can go around my loop of heuristic models of reality, and you can go around your loop of heuristic models of reality. And you've got hands and I've got sands, and we're good to go. But the next level of insanity is when one day I say sand, and the next I can't remember what the symbol was. I don't know what that is. I can't remember what the visual symbol was. I used to be able to look at this and know what it did, but now I look at it and it's like I've lost my memory. So this is loss of memory. Now this is loss of the pattern, because to be sane, to predict the future, you need enough of a pattern. Like if you look at this pattern and say this has been going on for 100 years, well, you've got at least a 1% chance that it'll go on for another year. So you predicted the future. But if I have short-term memory and all I can remember is this, I have no idea if the next symbol will be that, will be this. I can't predict the future, and so I have to make a guess. My guess is 99% likely to be wrong, and so I will behave in a way that makes no sense given my goal of feeling sustainably better. I'm going to walk out in traffic and I didn't know that that would kill me, and so I got hit. Everyone else looks, that's insane. You walked out in front of traffic because they know the pattern. The pattern is vehicles are moving along, you walk out in front, you get hit. That's the pattern. You don't see the pattern. And so the destructive form of insanity is blindness, ignorance, myopia, willful blindness, willful ignorance, and myopia. I do not want to see the truth of this pattern. Why? Because that truth means something to me, and I don't like the meaning. That means I'm a jerk. Because I've defined jerk as someone who does this, and I just did that. I don't want to see it. Why? Because I've decided that jerks need to be punished. Why? Well, that was my model for reality, punish jerks. And so jerks are like this. Jerks deserve to be punished. I seem to be a jerk. And what's next? Punishment. Well, I don't want to be punished. And so at this point, I can start to dissociate. No, I didn't do that. So-and-so's a jerk, but they're a jerk because only green shirts on a Tuesday who do that are jerks, but I'm a red shirt on a Wednesday. So no, does that make any sense? No, you're starting to go insane. You're starting to warp the pattern. Or you can say, you know what, now that I'm a jerk, I don't think jerks should be punished. And I'm going to stop punishing. No, I don't want to stop punishing these other jerks, right? So you've got an incoherence. You have coherence, a pattern, you have an incoherence, and you start spinning round and round. Now, this is the problem with any pattern of reality. None of them are perfect, but you either get stuck in the dogma of the pattern, which is not as complex and perfect, etc., and you get stuck there, or you lose the coherence and you don't know what to do next. But the point where you start moving into dysfunctional insanity is the point where you start lying to yourself to maintain a dogmatic pattern you don't actually agree with. Like, Hitler had Jewish ancestry. So, he should have been, with his biases, one of the first in the gas chamber, but he wasn't, right? So, that's a, we've got a dissociation from parts of reality. And the good insanity is to understand that no system is perfect. So your little system, your cult, is going around in its box. All cults have a box of some sort. Many don't look as symmetrical as this one, and of course this one isn't perfect either, but they have a box. Now, if you're highly intelligent, you're going to find this box limiting, because it is, all systems are at some point. And so let's say you want to develop a little bit more sophisticated of a system. It's still boxy, it's still not perfect, but you're going to turn, and you're going to create an 8-sided shape rather than a 4-sided shape. Now, in order to do that, you've got to violate the status quo. You've got to violate the system. And this is where we come back to that fine line between genius and insanity. Because when you start heading off here, and here, and here, and here, you're outside the system, you're outside the box. And the people in the system and in the box do not know what you're doing, and they don't know why you're doing it. They just know that you've gone crazy. You've gone dissociative from the box. You're outside the bounds of coherence. You're not cohering to the boundary. You are insane. You are dissociating. You're outside the circle. Now, in this outside of the circle of the unknown, the constructive unknown, the destructive unknown, the unknown majestic joy, the unknown unfathomable horror, in and outside the unknown, you're relating to parts of the system that those inside the system cannot relate to. Inside the corporate office, you have casual Tuesdays. And everyone agrees that they can dress with more variety on a Tuesday. More variety, but there's still all kinds of unspoken laws. Well, if you walk in on a Wednesday, dressed informally, it's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to get fired? You're not fitting into the system. But what if you're self-employed and you have pink Mondays, red Tuesdays, green Thursdays, and that's your little system? Well, if one day you put on purple and call it pink, you're starting to go a little insane if your definition of pink is the lighter color. But if you don't put on pink on a Tuesday, the pink Tuesday, well, then you've gone a little bit insane, because your little system was to do this, this, and this, and you're breaking the system. And so here's the question and the humble point, meaning it's the unknown. Every single genius heads out from the system. Here's the system, this, that's the tried and true system. Every genius heads out into the unknown. And of course, their bet in doing so, in going outside of the mapped arena of consciousness, we're not talking about outside of reality. You cannot get outside of reality. We're talking about outside the mapped arena of consciousness. Nobody else can track you. You are alone. You are outside of the system. And so nobody knows how to relate to you, where you are, and you may not know where you are. So you can get lost in the unknown unknown. Where you cannot find what's real. Is what my sense is saying is real, or what my meditation is saying is real, or this meditation, or this voice? I can't find what's real. I don't know where I am in the complexity of what is. I'm outside the system. And so insanity is that point where you don't know where you're going, why you're going, where you should be going, where you shouldn't be going, what it's called, and nobody else knows where that is either. It's an uncharted terrain to you and to everyone else. And it's outside the paradigm. It's outside the experience. It's outside the repetitive pattern. I can't find it. Now, if you want to know, if you want to see, if you want to be present, if you will spend enough time in that terrain without moving around, you will start to see that there is a new set of habits. You leave Alaska and head over to Thailand, and it's insane. Where's the snow? Where's the glacier? This isn't real. But then you learn, there's a monsoon, there's a new pattern. And so the new pattern, the weather is like this, the culture is like that, the food is like this. And so now I can predict the future again. Now I know what these have names for. I've created those names. I remember them. I pull them up. I expect. I create the future. I'm now dealing with a new reality. I remember the old reality. I remember the old roadmap. That's how to deal with Alaska. This is how to deal with Thailand. Well, you need a paradigm. Well, we're a circle. And as we get close to the sun, we get this. And as we do this, we get this. And these people evolved out of these religions. And these people evolved out of these religions. And these were good habits at one point, and that's the cult meme for here, and this is the cult meme for there. And of course, you want the maps to fit the right geography. As you meet with a person, you remember, you have sunburn. You need the map. So I'm not going to slap you on the shoulder. You don't have sunburn, and you're a little bit sleepy, and you like being woken up. I'll give you a good slap on the back, a good hug, and you'll be enlivened. So I need a map for you, and I need a map for you. And part of the reason we're so insane as a cult is that in the rapid migration of people from the small villages we emerged out of and the 150 gorilla tribe and ape tribe that we grew out of, to be interacting with tens of thousands of people, each that have a map, each that have their own kind of sanity, their own paradigms, their own reality. They're getting news and data from different sources. We don't have a map. So when I open the door for you and you say, what do you think I am, a helpless woman? And then you open the door for someone else and they say, thank you, you're a gentleman. The maps aren't working. Because, okay, here's another person, looks female. Are they a female? Well, it's hard to say. Well, okay, open the door or not. Will it be rude to ask? I don't know, because I don't know your map. And so sanity is all about having a map that is coherent to you, that helps you relate to reality. Insanity is about having a map that is incoherent and does not help you relate to reality, to a point where you can't even see what the map is. And as evolution occurs, simple maps get erased and get replaced with more complex maps, which are more useful. I mean, if you can imagine trying to navigate in a city, and all you have is the map that says London's here, Sydney's there, Paris is here. So you got the map of where the city is, and you arrive, okay, I'm in London, and you're going to meet someone in London. It's not a good enough map. You're in London, I'm in London, let's just wander around for the next 10 years and maybe we'll bump into each other. No, we need to know street maps, okay? You're on a street, I'm on the same street. No, we need to have numbers. Okay, if I'm at 54 Hampton Court in London And now we've got a map of time. Sometime in 2021, no. At 5:49 p.m., there you are. You're located here. You need more and more complex maps. As you do that, you at times need to violate. As you go from the norm, the simple norm, to the more complex norm, you need to create more complex maps. And the challenge is to move towards complexity with sanity, meaning it doesn't just become a complete jumble. I have no idea what that is. Give me my little simple black and white map, because I can't, I just can't find what this thing is. So that's the challenge, and it looks the same to the outside, whether you're moving towards evolution or whether you're moving towards mapping out terrain that everyone else is not aware of. You look insane, because from the perspective inside the box, anything outside the box doesn't exist, is crazy, is unmapped, is the unknown. And so you cannot fully understand a system until you're outside of it, including your own, which is why it's good to travel and have different cult experiences. Oh, you're a cult that believes in eating grasshoppers. I'm part of a cult that says never eat a grasshopper. I see. I didn't know there were millions of people eating grasshoppers and getting good minerals. I see. Okay. You go outside of your system. You go outside of your little microcosmic marriage, where, in your marriage, don't ever talk about that. Okay, it's a consistent system. Every time I bring it up, you get angry. But then I go to another system and they say, oh, tell me all about that. And they have a different way of relating to what it is. What's taboo here has a different relationship over here. So systems are technologies whose job is to facilitate an evolution of consciousness, an evolution of well-being. And in order to evolve, in order to grow, you have to enter chaos, you have to enter the unknown, launching out as Columbus or different Magellan explorers, launching out into the unknown, but based on a hypothesis. You don't just set out to sea on a lead pipe. Like, let's explore the new world sailing out on a lead pipe. You use the technology of your system to launch out intelligently into the unknown. And in the hero's journey, some come back and bring gifts, and others are lost, go insane, get sick, die, are attacked, are betrayed, encounter something they don't understand, and die in the journey into the unknown. But to move towards genius and knowledge, etc., you have to push the edges of your system. You have to go out into the unknown. If you cannot face what you do know, then you have to go insane in the other direction, where you just lose coherence of the current system, because you cannot face the current system, because you don't want to look at it, because you don't want to see it, because you don't want to feel it. That's the moving backward in the womb. If you go down, if you die, if you just cease to think and feel and have any words at all, you just retreat into a fetal position and regress. It's called devolution. Evolution is being willing to be wrong, going out into more complex systems, being willing to make mistakes, understanding that no one at any point in time, no one ever understands the big picture in all of its details. It's a continuum. There's just plenty of people who understand it more than you do, and then people who understand it more than they do, and there will be people who understand it more than they do. And so the big discernment, as someone violates the status quo, is, are they on the genius side of that continuum, or are they on the regressed side of that continuum? And it takes a certain amount of intelligence to know that a majority often doesn't have. And so we punish our geniuses, we punish our anomalies, we punish anyone who goes outside the unknown and threatens our little box of the status quo. But there's always a small group of highly intelligent people who can discern the difference between the destructive insanity and the genius insanity, and who support our innovators, our creators, our dreamers, because they have given birth to every technology on earth, including language, including French pastries, including fine wines, including cell phones. It was someone who was once thought to be crazy who had that new idea.